Okay, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Michael McDonough. It's McDonough, and I'm the Director of Communications for Loevy Loevy. We are proud to be here today to represent an extraordinary man named James Soto, and to discuss the federal lawsuit he filed this morning in U.S. District Court against the City of Chicago, dozens of Chicago police officers, Cook County, and 3 Cook County's Assistant State's Attorneys. Speaking today will be John Loevy, founding partner of Loevy Loevy, attorney Meg Gould, G-O-U-L-D, and Mr. Soto himself. They will discuss the criminal case that led to Mr. Soto's wrongful arrest and conviction, today's lawsuit, and Mr. Soto's remarkable story of perseverance in his more than 40-year quest for justice. After all 3 have spoken, they'll be happy to take your questions. And first, we're going to turn it over to attorney John Loevy.
Thanks, Mike. I'm John Loevy, here with Meg Gould, Jennifer Blagg. Attorneys, we represent Jimmy Soto. Mr. Soto filed a lawsuit today arising out of his wrongful conviction. He spent 42 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, believed to be the longest serving exoneree in Illinois history. He served that time starting when he was 19, was released as a 62-year-old man, and now he's filing this lawsuit seeking justice. He's filed it against the Chicago Police Department. His story, unfortunately, is somewhat familiar. When he was just a teenager, there was a shooting on the southwest side of Chicago, August 1981 in Petrowski Park. He had absolutely nothing to do with it. The police didn't catch anybody. A couple months go by, the case went cold, and they decided they were going to close it irrespective of anybody's guilt or innocence. And they decided that Jimmy Soto was the gunman, even though he wasn't. They grabbed about a dozen people, arrested them, mostly juveniles, held them overnight, threatened them, deprived them of food, and basically would not accept any story other than that Mr. Sotos was guilty even though he wasn't. Mr. Sotos, as I said, was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison, and spent more than 4 decades in jail, in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He's a very intelligent man, and he, although was not technically eligible for parole and was never going to see the light of day, advanced his studies and bettered himself. He's part of the inaugural class of Northwestern's continuing education program in prison. He graduated magna cum laude from Northwestern with a degree, and he's since his release become a paralegal, and he plans to go to law school. And his background in law comes from really pursuing his own case. For many, many years, he fought on his own, pro se, trying to overturn this conviction. Fortunately, he was assisted by Jennifer Blagg, a criminal defense attorney in the city of Chicago, one of the best. And later on, the Exoneration Project got involved as well, the Exoneration Project here in Chicago, and they were able to persuade the court that the evidence against Mr. Soto had been fabricated and that his constitutional rights had been violated and he did not commit the crime for which he was convicted. Cook County State's Attorney's Office agreed to dismiss the charges and vacate the conviction, and now he's a free man. And he seeks justice for that incarceration, more than 4 decades of wrongful imprisonment. He sued a number of Chicago police officers who participated in his wrongful conviction, and he sues the city of Chicago itself, Chicago Police Department, for its policies and practices that lead to way too many wrongful convictions. And next, Meg Gould's going to talk a little bit about Jimmy Soto and what this all means, and we're going to try to turn the microphones. You guys will let us know if it doesn't work, and we have to switch it up, but let's see how this works.
Can you just switch chairs?
Sorry.
Okay, it'll be easier there.
That'd be easy, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll switch when it comes time.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. In a few minutes, you'll get the chance to hear from Mr. Soto himself, but I just wanted to follow up on some of the amazing things that Jimmy Soto has been able to do throughout his 4 decades of incarceration and afterwards. We are so proud as Loevy Loevy to get to represent him in his civil lawsuit against the City of Chicago, multiple police officer defendants, Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and against Cook County. And I know for most people in the room, it's inconceivable to imagine what it would be like to spend more than 4 decades incarcerated, but even when the criminal legal system repeatedly denied Mr. Soto his freedom, he never let that stop himself from advocating for himself, advocating for everyone around him, and defying the odds in really every way that he could. So I wanted to take a minute to just run through some of the incredible accomplishments that he has had over the course of his life. In prison, Mr. Soto took vocational courses, he received college credits, he became a certified paralegal, he tutored Spanish-speaking peers, he worked in the law library, he became a member of the U.S. Junior Chamber, a leadership training service organization, and he maintained this personal thirst for knowledge, but that was always connected to a bigger goal of advocacy, again, for himself and for others. And he has continued seeking accountability and justice for himself and again for his peers and for those who he can help now as a paralegal himself. As John mentioned earlier, he graduated magna cum laude with his bachelor's degree as the part of the first cohort of Northwestern's prison education program, and he has no plans to stop pursuing his legal education. He plans to go to law school to continue to work, to continue his work to help others like him. So it's my tremendous pleasure to introduce Mr. Soto.
Thank you all for coming out here this afternoon. I want to thank my legal team for all the work that they've done to get to this point. This is one step, another step in the journey to help get justice for me. And I know justice is such an obscure term, sort of abstract in our society. But I want people to really understand that my plight in there was always to get out, and it wasn't easy. And it was the conditions. Those 42 years that I spent incarcerated, which I should never have been, it was the condition. They were so degrading, the dereliction, the dehumanizing way in which they incarcerate. It's just, to me, it was just a tremendous toll on me. But thankfully, I was able to find the fortitude to continue on to fight not only for me, but on behalf of others. And it wasn't easy. To get to this point now, to me, is really surreal. To be in Lincoln Hall at Northwestern University and now announcing the lawsuit that, in a sense, will be justice. But I would ask, what really is the measure of justice for someone who spent 42 years in prison? The conditions I spoke were horrendous, and the psychological toll and the physical toll that it took on me, I don't know if we can actually put a metric to that. What would really be the just compensation? Are those who are accountable really going to be held to that responsibility of putting me into the prison? I don't know. But I would just hope that people will understand that this is just, like I said, one step towards trying to get justice for me. And I really appreciate John, Loevy Loevy, Jennifer Blagg, Megan Gould, Russell Ainsworth for all putting this together and getting me to this point. And like I said, it's a struggle. And my question would be, like I said, what is just compensation? What does it look like? You know, 100 million, 150 million, 200 million? I would say I'm deserving of probably 200 plus million of what I've been through. And I hope that whatever happens as far as the settlement award, it would be equal to me being the longest serving. So then, therefore, if we use that simple metric, it should be the highest award or settlement in the history of Chicago.
Jimmy, who else is here in support?
Here I have a lot of friends. There are Exonerees. There is Brian Beals, who held the longest serving exoneree for a week until I got out. And so he was glad to get past the mantle to me. But I have my family, my sisters, two sisters are here, Rose and my sister Pilar, my brother-in-law Adam. I have Jennifer Lackey, who I can't speak enough about her, who gave me the gift of higher education and has helped me tremendously on my transition out here. We also have attorney Ashley Cohen Blair, who is also from my co-defendant, David Ayala's legal team. And we have Max and Javier Reyes from Challenge to Change. And Ronnie Carrasquillo, and people from Loevy Loevy's re-entry team, Yeah, so it's great to have some of the faculty from the Northwestern Prison Education Program. I'm so thankful that they're all here to support this part of my journey.
You know, the Northwestern Prison Education Program truly is unique because as a society, you know, sometimes we lock people up and forget about them, but Northwestern is really to be commended for helping people get educated. Will you talk a little bit about what that program was and what it meant to you?
I mean, I described it in a statement that I wrote to get into the bachelor program, that for years Illinois didn't have any educational programs, and when I saw the opportunity to apply for Northwestern, I said, is it the Northwestern? I was just really so glad that I had that chance. And when I got the letter, I felt like, you know, Willy Wonka with the golden ticket that I got in. But it was like an oasis in a desert for so long that didn't have anything. And just to drink from the well of higher learning, I just couldn't get enough of it. And it was, like I said, it not only made you a better student, it also transforms you into a better person. They give you the skill set to be successful both in there and out here.
What's it like to study in prison?
We had to do our papers in these little plastic 3-inch pens. That's the only thing that you're allowed. We had to write everything by hand. So technology was not available to us in the sense that average student would have it. So the noise level, the person that you're in the cell with, it's just a lot of factors that go into making it very difficult to focus and to do your schoolwork.
Did they go easy on the prisoners or is it the same curriculum?
They gave us the same rigorous curriculum that they do at the university, and I'm thankful because I wouldn't have it any other way. Professor Lackey told us that when we entered the program that we might be good writers, we might be fair writers, but at the end of it, we would all be excellent writers. And I questioned that. But at the end, I can honestly say that any cohort, my cohort included, when we graduated, we are all excellent writers.
And what's your law school plan?
Right now, I'm studying for the LSAT. I'm going to take it on November 7th, and I hope to get a good enough score to apply at the very university, Northwestern, so I can be double purple. Yeah, go Cats. You know, whatever university I land at, I think I come with a unique skill set and a unique experience. And the goal is to get my degree in criminal law and to help individuals like me who are wrongfully convicted and need assistance, because I know how that feels.
Any other questions?
Oh, sure, we do have a few other questions. Thank you for sharing, Jimmy, and everybody. Hey. Knowing that other federal lawsuits have been filed like this and have not gotten any traction, and your understanding of not only your case, but of the law, how are you feeling about our justice system?
Well, I'll say this, that it is really truly justice delayed. And if we go to the old adage, justice delayed, justice denied, then I spoke about, you know, justice being an obscure term. Waiting for these settlements to come through and or to go to trial is just, to me, ridiculous. I know that there's a lot of people wondering, why does it take so long? And to me, I can't have that answer. John, who has more experience in that realm than me, could probably better answer why it takes so long, but it shouldn't. Realistically, my team has told me we're looking at 4 or 5 years before we get to that point.
Perhaps someone does want to comment on that. I know our station and others have done reports about the money being spent to fight these types of federal complaints. Who would like to comment on what they hope happens?
I mean, in fairness, it's a tricky problem. The city, you know, gets sued. Nobody begrudges them the right under appropriate circumstances to defend themselves, but the system is broken because there are cases like this one and others where the right thing to do is get a resolution. And instead, what they do is they hire defense firms who make, you know, millions and millions of dollars in attorney's fees to protract the thing for 3 or 4 or 5 years. And then they lose anyways. And you know, they lose these giant verdicts, and then they've paid the defense firms millions of dollars, and then they have to pay the plaintiff's attorney's fees, and then they get these huge verdicts. A more rational system would involve, you know, a resolution. They can look at Jimmy Soto's case and say, geez, we got a problem here. We convicted a guy we shouldn't have convicted. Some of the police officers engaged in fabrication and misconduct. surely we can resolve it. But the way the city of Chicago's handled it in the past is just to stonewall and to deny and, and to fight to the bitter end. It's not a good strategy. It's not the way you'd run a company, because it's not economically rational, and it's not the way they should run a law department either. The problem wasn't good under the other mayors, and it certainly hasn't gotten better under this one.
Jimmy, you talked about the size of any potential settlement. Does the money mean more, or does the message it would send mean more to you about reforming the process and keeping people like you from having been incarcerated in the first place?
I think the message means more to me. Obviously, the money would help me put together my life that's been broken in 1,000 pieces. But the message to send that shot over the bow to say, this is intolerable, unexcusable for this to happen to someone like me.
And John, you mentioned the broken system. How broken does it have to be before it gets fixed? I mean, we're talking about 160+ million in the last 5 years spent on misconduct suits, much of it to your firm. Congratulations. But how much does it have? How big does this problem have to be before we try to fix it?
It's a very good point. The other part of my answer, which I guess I didn't finish, was there is a solution. Stop wrongfully convicting people. Stop police abuse. Spend the political capital and resources necessary to fix the problem. Some police departments don't have this problem, and they don't have as much financial exposure. There hasn't been a commitment on the part of prior administrations to do something about it, and this one has been more of the same. So that's the ultimate solution, is clean up the problem.
Jimmy, let's put 40 years in perspective. What is here now that wasn't there when you went in? I'm imagining cell phones, internet, all that stuff. Tell me how it was different to come out into a world like this.
Wow, that's a tough question to answer, because you feel like a stranger, so out of place, and something, the psychological toll is something that I guess will never leave me, that imprint of being incarcerated. There are a lot of things that trigger me, from everything from a siren to just hearing people yelling near me. That's the difficult part. But I have family and friends that are there for me and understand what I'm going through. I have to go to therapy, I think there was a recent Sun-Times headline article that talked about dementia, and how there are an increased level of dementia and cognitive skills are lost because of prolonged incarceration. I have elevated levels of lead in my system because of the water situation at Stateville and other prisons that I was at. So the question I would say to you would be that, transitioning from such a toxic environment to out here is a culture shock that's indescribable to put into words.
How do you feel about Stateville being closed down?
I feel wonderful about that. I played a very small role in bringing recognition, as you know, to this problem. And there's other prisons, Logan Women's Prison, for example. And that's something I'm doing as well, advocating for the rights of those that remain currently incarcerated. And the other question is this: how many more people are there wrongfully convicted who are lingering there decades? I predict that there will be other Jimmy Sotos that are going to be standing at a podium at some point, probably represented by John and his firm, his office, who are going to be standing here. So the question is, how many is in it? 25%, 10%? I would say about a good 20% of the population currently in Illinois IDOC are 100% actually innocent, just haven't had the opportunity to get justice and release.
We heard about your successes and what you've been able to accomplish, but you also mentioned that I think you said your life was blown apart.
Yeah.
Can you just unpack that a little bit? What
Well, it's difficult. You're coming from such an abnormal environment to come out here. It's difficult for me to maintain a personal relationship with somebody. I'm not used to being with a partner. I'm not used to being in certain spaces with a lot of people. Just the sensory overload, it can be overwhelming. And those things that are so easy for somebody to just navigate on a daily basis is a struggle for those of us who have spent decades in there.
And you mentioned, some of the physical problems that some of the wrongfully incarcerated are suffering, and that there are, hundreds, thousands possibly, also, who have similar cases, but they won't make it to this point.
Right. Yeah, you know, I was fighting really hard, and how I really got to get the exoneration project, et cetera, to get on board on my team was during the pandemic. I contracted COVID. I seen people leaving out the cell house and never returning. That was a scary feeling. I was sentenced to natural life without parole, which is really death by incarceration. So I knew that if I didn't get out, I would be one of those people that nobody would know. I'd be in obscurity. My case would never be known to the public of its injustice, its wrongfulness. So I would say that, you know, there's other people in there that passed away that are probably or were likely innocent. And you have an aging prison population in there. Cost benefit, I would think that the taxpayers would really need to look at that problem to get people out, because we're just incarcerating at a rate for such a long period of time that there's going to be those cracks in the system where people are gonna fall in there and probably pass away before they get justice.
Is that part of why you keep going?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, to try to right some of these wrongs.
Other questions?
What role did Reynaldo Guevara play in this case? I see that his name is mentioned in there.
Well, investigation continues. His name is on some of the reports, and you know, a lot of this happened behind Mr. Soto's back. So there's going to be depositions and investigation to determine just how involved he was. But as the question alludes to, Mr. Guevara has been responsible for dozens of wrongful convictions, and really the same MO every time. He decides who's guilty, and then the facts and the evidence has to fit his hypothesis. So we look forward to deposing Mr. Guevara and asking him some questions, and let's see what his answers are.
Jimmy, do you speak Spanish?
Yes, I do. Well, that's why, yeah, claro.
Por Telemundo, ¿puede decir en español por qué es necesario usar este lawsuit in what's federal court?
Para enseñar al público la injusticia que el sistema tiene y para enseñar al público también que sí podemos tener justicia para alguien que estaba preso tanto tiempo.
¿Qué quieres de la lawsuit?
Pardon me?
¿Qué quieres de la lawsuit?
What are you
What
trying
do you
to
want from the
what do you
lawsuit?
want?
En español.
Quiero justicia, pero quiero también a poner un luz en la gente que hicieron esto, la policía, los abogados del Estado, para enseñar que, como te digo, el sistema está quebrado.
All right.
And so what is the status? Has this actually been filed?
It
Or?
was filed this morning. It's pending now in federal court. The judge we've drawn is Judge Packel. So we're looking forward to litigating it and seeing where it goes.
And is it this versus the city of Chicago,
Yes, and a number of Chicago police officers.
including Guevara?
Yes.
And is there a monetary value on it?
Well, the complaint doesn't act for an exact amount, and as Jimmy eloquently said, there's no amount of money to give him back his lost time. He wouldn't take any amount of money to have his 4 decades back, but someday a jury will decide what's fair.
And it's technically a civil rights
Yes.
violation lawsuit. Do you know if the city has been served yet?
They probably have not. It was filed this morning.
This month, okay. So waiting for the city to be served and then a court date.
That's the next step. I can tell you their
Thank
comment.
you. Sorry, I only play a lawyer on TV. I really don't understand the whole system, so I want to make sure I get it right.
I don't believe anyone has been served yet. The complaint was just filed, and everything will follow up on that, today and in the ensuing weeks.
And does anyone have an idea of how many other federal civil rights lawsuits are waiting or in the process regarding wrongful convictions?
Dozens. Less than 50, but not too many left.
And you're representing other,
Many, including several dozen victims of Detective Guevara. Just in closing, I just want to mention again, if you're a wrongfully convicted person, Jennifer Blag is the best in the business of helping people get exonerated. So thanks, everybody.
Jennifer, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Well, we're just getting a couple of other shots, and would you mind just saying your names again, just while we're getting a few other shots?
Jennifer Black.
I'm John Loevy.
James Soto.
Meg Gould.
And Meg, what's your position?
I'm an attorney at Loevy Loevy.
Jimmy, when we Chiron you underneath, you wanna say James or say Jimmy?
It doesn't matter.
do
They
you
know
like?
me by both.
You decide, your name.
Okay, Jimmy.
Jimmy it is.
Jimmy it is.
Okay, Jimmy it is.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bravo.